Hey there, this is Beardfoot, and today I want to show you how to build this leather helmet. In the beginning is always the pattern. You want to print it out in the size that is fitting for you, cut it in pieces and transfer it onto leather. A rough paper model like this is highly recommended to make sure it fits. Also, please note that this is designed to wear a head cushion underneath of any kind, and you want to think about this when you size it. Please note that around the face area, especially the eyes, you want to leave some excess leather on the base piece. To help cut out, you want to use a ruler for straight edges and a hole punch for inner corners. Moisten your pieces from both sides completely, let them set for a while, and use this drying time to mark already some of the lines for your tooling. When the leather is still cool on the touch but mostly dry, we can start using our stamps. For long, mostly straight lines, I like to use a bone folder to get in a deeper line and then use the beveler without the swivel knife along this very line. Next up, we want to punch some round holes and stitching holes. When the leather is dry again, we can use our beveler to bevel the edge from both sides. Getting some battle damage, you can use your swivel knife, you can use natural rocks, you can use any kind of stamps very randomly to get in a roughed up leather. Thin out the leather on the flesh side around the blue marked areas to make bending easier. Also, don't forget to punch the holes along the edge for the weaving. I sadly forgot to film the dyeing process, but here you can see how it came out. I use this spray gun like most of the times, and after this I use a coat of resist to seal the leather and protect it, and also the dye. Use the moisture of the resist along the edge to burnish it. To get a special style, I put on another coat of dye and tap it away before it's completely dry. Next, you want to moisten your base piece to give it a rough shaping and then start sewing it together, starting from the nose. Please note that I have positioned the two base pieces on the back of the head in a way that I don't have to sew them together there. Next, you want to moisten the edges on the top of the head and bend them upwards to make them fit together, and only at the back of the head it will flip underneath the helmet. Give it a mark where it flips, so you know where you don't need any glue. And then when it's dry, use some contact cement to glue it together. When the edge is completely dry, cut through the sewing holes and sew them. Now only the very back of the head is still loose, so you wanna rough it up and glue it together and stitch it as well. Everything is now locked in place, so cut away the excess leather, sand it, bevel it, re-dye it and burnish it. And this is what we have so far. Honestly, it does not look like much, but we're getting in shaping next. Getting in some hot water and put in the leather helmet for around 30 minutes. If your pot is too small like mine here, you just wanna flip it half the way. After this, you wanna give it a few hours for drying and then start shaping. Start with the top of the head and bend inwards the stitched line. Next, use a bone folder from the inside out to stretch the leather a little bit and give it a more round helmet-like shape. Bend the neck edge upwards a little bit and also round the face. Also for cheeks and nose, you want to give it a rough shaping now. You also want to moisten and shape the pieces that will be attached to the helm base. Going for the edge weaving next, the technique is fairly simple. You want to pull your lace almost all the way through the first hole and then go into the second hole. Pull it almost all the way through to create a loop and then go through this loop again from right to left, then close the first loop and then the second loop. Next we want to position the side pieces, mark where the edge goes along rough up this area and use glue to glue it on. Also, this is the last situation where you can easily bend the face area, so you should do so. And again, cutting the sewing holes and sew it. After the side pieces, you want to also sew on the head strap. Just go through the very same stitching holes you used already. And after all this, when all pieces are glued and stitched on, cut away the excess leather, sand it, dye it, burnish it. For the eyes, a dremel-like tool is highly recommended. Also sweeten on the little pyramids on the cheeks. Punch through completely the round holes as well. And now we are done with the main helmet piece. Next is the neck. And this is roughly what we are looking for. I recommend paracord to weave it, since it has very low friction and you can easily readjust it. We're starting with the smallest scale, and the idea is fairly simple. You go through the holes on the top, then go down in another layer and go through the holes there, and go back up again, and then down and up and on until you're gone. That's basically already it. If you're doing like exactly these knots or something, it's not that important. Just make sure that the distance of the two different layers fits together and is even as possible. And when you run out of scales, just start with the neck piece, and there it's completely the same. And after that we go for the next layer. So here we just weave up and down a little bit first, and then get in the biggest layer of scales and do it the very same as before. The highest row of holes is for the attachment on the helmet, and there you want to just create some lashes on every hole. And how exactly you do this is, again, does not really matter. Just let it be around 1 centimeter. And note that on the neck piece I changed the pattern for you a little bit, so there are now 2 holes in the highest row, so you just have to go forth and back and not do this weird knot stuff that I'm doing here, so you will have it fairly easy. You can sew it on test-wise, just with a little bit of thread, and to check if all the lashes are on the same distance and if it lines up like you want. For the ends of the paracord, you just want to cut them away and melt them down so they will stick. Just the highest layer paracord end you want to keep for now. This one. To attach the neck piece to the helmet, you want to open a hole in the paracord with an awl and get in a rivet through this very hole. Important to note here is that the 5 holes at both ends need long rivets and the 6 in the middle need short ones. If you don't take this into account, you may screw up setting the rivets like I did, and then it got really messy. Now the left end of the paracord you want to sew onto the stitch line on the cheek. So the skates will pull a little bit down and then cut it off and melt it down. And this is where we could stop right away, but there are still some horns to make. Draw a parallel line along the edge to make your hole punching more consistent. Transfer the holes on the horn and be sure to only punch every second edge halfway. And on the pattern it's only the red marked holes. The reason for this I will explain in a minute. Use some lace to go through the first hole, then go on the other side to the next hole, go back to the first hole again, and then just start cross-stitching until you run out of holes. Now, when you have no holes anymore, you want to align the edges and check if the holes you marked that you did not punch are still line up, and reposition them if needed. Since the horn is heavily curled, this makes everything a lot more precise, since difference in cutting and weaving and hole punching can make a lot of difference here. And this way you make sure that everything looks nice and clean. Here you can see that I had around 1.5 centimeters along the edges difference. And this is also the reason why you want to keep some excess leather at the ends. Next we want to moisten the horns and shape them. Especially at the base we want to have a round shape. So use your base pieces here and shape them along to each other, clamp them in position and make sure that they nicely fit and let them dry. To make sure that the lace is fitting in color wise, I gave it another paint job. Position the horn bases on the horn, clamp them there, mark the edge, rough the area underneath up and glue it on like you did already before on the helmet. When gluing on you want to start at one side and then work yourself around to make sure that the base is fitting completely tight all around the horn. If not happened already, you want to cut the sewing holes on the base piece here, and you have to take into account that on the helmet are marked 46 holes, but on the horn base are only marked 42. So there are 4 holes that need to be on the horn only. For sewing, I recommend you to use only one thread, and this will make later on attaching it to the helmet easier. And you did it already twice. Cut away any excess leather, sand it, re-dye it, burnish it. To attach the horns, cut through completely the holes on the helmet, and then when sewing use only one thread, and you want to keep it very loose, else you will not get into the holes that easy. By using only one thread here, you make sure that you do not by accident split the thread. This would tighten the thread now impossible. It is laborious and annoying, but as far as I can see, it's the only way you can touch them. And this is it. I really like this build. I'm really proud how it came out. Wasn't sure at all how it would look at the end, but I have to say that I might remove the horns again, because I really liked how it looked before already. But you can do it just the way as you want. As again, note that you should wear a head cushion of any kind or some foam on the inside to make it wear more comfortable and also protect yourself from any hits in Larp combat. Thank you very much for sticking till the end. I hope you enjoyed this and have a great day.